So, the first two episodes of Apple's new sci-fi mystery show Silo dropped last week to pretty positive online reviews as far as I can tell. Episode 3, let's get into it. As always, I'm Al, this is the Geek in Review, and thanks for taking the time to choose to watch this video. If you haven't done it already and you're a repeat viewer, please subscribe to the channel. It's only a small click and it takes a few seconds. But anyway, Silo episode 3, what's going on? So this is mostly a Juliet focused episode. We don't get more of those bigger plots and mysteries that were set up in the first two episodes, but this is pretty much setting up her role within the show, or at least the role she's about to fill within the silo as sheriff. So it picks up straight away, pretty much exactly where episode 2 left off. Juliet deciding not to investigate the creepy dark water-filled pit. The mayor and Myrns are still on their way to meet her after Holston surprisingly named her as a new sheriff before he finished his cleaning duties. And remember, it takes a few days or at least a day to walk the entire levels of the silo, so they're still on their way there when they pick this up in episode 3. And I'll be honest, not a great episode just to set up Juliet's character in this one and let us say how she's going to fit into it all. So she's trying to get the head of the engineering team to shut down the reactor that powers the silo to do some essential maintenance before it breaks, and it's irreparable and ultimately could kill everyone that's in there. But it's never been shut down in the history of the silo, so bit of a conflict and sword hanging over their head there. And we find out that the process of choosing a sheriff might be a little bit more complicated than them just being named. Back at the admin department, Myrns and the mayor meet Bernard. And remember, he's Ali's old boss from the first two episodes, and man, you don't get Tim Robbins in just to play a bit of a guest part. So I think the admin or the IT department, depending on what you want to call them, are going to play a huge role in this show. And we do find out a little bit more about life in the silo, specifically how it works with regards to jobs. So it seems that within it, people are sort of selected or pre-approved for certain roles or jobs, sort of like being predetermined, but we don't get told exactly how this works, but it definitely plays into all the stuff that happened in the first two episodes of only certain people allowed to be having kids. I don't think it's exactly the same setup, but there's definitely parallels here between who can do certain things and who can't, and this is definitely going to be a theme that they're going to explore in this show, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more of it. And it seems that admins sort of try and work out the stats to work out who's going to be the best fit for which role, and work out what might happen if that person takes that role. So they aren't in favour of Juliet, but not fully against her either, or at least Bernard isn't. Whether there's anyone higher than them, we don't know yet. And we do get to see a little bit more of life in the silo with the mayor on our journey here. We see the judicial department, but we don't really get a good look at it. We see her doing the standard politician thing and shaking hands and taking pictures, or at least not taking pictures, but holding babies, because man, politicians love that. And the mayor is reassuring the residents as well that it's the community that makes the silo, not the rule of law. And I don't know how true that's going to be if they don't appoint a new sheriff soon. And what I found interesting about the scene where the mayor asked to see the children is, yeah, she says she's not been there in years, but if she's involved in this sort of pre-approved birthing list, she knows who's going to have kids and she knows who doesn't. But I'm not entirely sure if she is in on the plan. She seems a bit more friendly and a bit less clinical than some of the characters that we've met so far. And with the ending of this episode, which I'll get to in a minute, I don't think this mayor at least is in on a lot of the plots or mysteries that have been set up in this show so far. And this is all a setup to introduce us to Juliet's dad, who's a doctor, and played by Iain Glen from Game of Thrones. I know, blah blah blah, whatever, like and subscribe. But yeah, it's very odd given his high position as a doctor within the silo that his daughter would choose to be an engineer who works at the lowest levels, because social status, and they're not really leaning too heavily into this aspect of the show yet. I think they will, but there's obviously at least 3 sort of clear tiers of the aspects of society in the silo, and Juliet is right at the bottom. And she chooses to be, and that definitely says something about her as a character. And a lot of the mystery stuff last week is sort of left off. Juliet is frustrated that she can't follow the clues left to her by George. And just as the mayor and Mearns reach the bottom where Juliet is, the generator / reactor, whatever you want to call it, is starting to have problems. So yeah, this episode's all about her proving her worth and helping restore, or at least stop the issues with the generator getting any worse as the mayor and Mearns look on. And they tell her why they're there, that she was Holston's choice as a new sheriff, and that no one really wants her for the job. Again, seeming to play into that whole, you have to be predetermined for a role, you're not groomed for it or set up for it. It just seems to be who your background is. But at the time, she turns it down as she views keeping the lights and air on is more important than being sheriff in the silo. And everyone that works with her is kind of shocked that she's been offered this role out of nowhere. Because it's, completely unusual that someone would get elevated in this manner. And it's probably going to create a lot of gossip as to how she got there if she decides to take it as well. And as I mentioned, she's not that jazzed on the fact that she wants this position. She doesn't see that sheriff has as much value as being an engineer, until she finds a message left on the back of the sheriff's badge that Holston wanted her to have, which is coming later on. But she agrees to go for the position of sheriff as long as they let her fix the generator beforehand. And they've got this plan to shut down the generator in order to repair it, which has never been done in the history of the silo, so they need to turn the lights off for a bit to repair the thing that keeps them all alive. But it's not that simple. They only have 30 minutes to repair it before the pressure builds up within the systems that they've shut down. And you know, bad times for everyone if you're locked underground and rely on artificial air and light. And of course, this is all setting Juliet up to be a recognised hero and therefore someone who can take over as sheriff in the silo. And maybe a bit higher than that if the mayor wants to step down or, has some sort of accident. And we get quite a lot of the mayor and Mearns in this episode. We actually find out there's sort of an item or sort of have had a thing in the past that definitely seems to be going on. I don't think this relationship is going to be publicly allowed the way that we understand the rules of the silo, but they definitely seem to really care for each other, and this isn't a bond that happens quickly, so this has definitely been going on for quite a few years. But of course, love never goes well in sci-fi, and it ends in disaster when the mayor is seemingly poisoned by the end of the episode. So again, spoilers if you've not seen it, but you're well into this review and I've held off this long, so whatever. But Juliet and the engineers manage to shut the generator down, repair the pressure issue and get the lights back on, making sure that it probably, or at least hopefully, won't happen again. So it was a bit of a real-time disaster episode this week. As I said, mainly focus on Juliet in order to cement her position within the silo by saving it. But what's really interesting about this episode is the fraction of a second that most people didn't notice. When they shut the generator down, it seems that they do it at night in order to minimise the impact to the residents. But when the lights go out, the screen that they all were watching the cleaning from in the first 2 episodes cuts to the other view of it, so you see the lush green world, or at least they see the lush green world that the people in the suits are seeing for only a fraction of a second. And I thought, are they going to build on that? But no one really seemed to react to it, so maybe, I don't know if they see it as some sort of screensaver type thing. But if you've only got the one view and that view was to change for a fraction of a second, not everyone's going to see it or take it in, especially if there's an emergency going on at the time. So, that's kind of got me thinking, are they going to build on this? But Let me know what you guys think. Did you notice the little bit of the sort of vision on the screen, or the false vision on the screen? Do you think they're going to build on it? Let me know in the comments below. Because if you want to get people to leave the silo or expose the truth of it, they're going to have to learn about what they're looking at and what's real and what's not, and how that's used to manipulate people. And en masse proving that to a group of people, especially a society that's so self-enclosed and close-knit, is going to be impossible. So yeah, I really hope that they do continue this in further episodes. But if I'm perfectly honest, this episode isn't as interesting as the first two, as it doesn't carry over all those big plot mysteries and questions that we have. There's no big reveals in this episode this week, it's more a day in the life sort of thing. The only reveal is on the back of Holston's badge. The message that he left for Juliet was the word truth. So he seems to think that whatever journey she's going to be on, it's going to take her further, or at least as far as he got. But yeah, to me that probably means that Juliet, like Holston, is going to volunteer to go outside at some point in order to prove what's real and what isn't, and her having a bit more of a technical mind, I think she's going to pick up on things that Holston wouldn't register. There's still a lot of questions about the outside, why they're showing two different versions of it. As I said at the start of the episode, it was a bit more of a slow burner this week. We don't get anything huge particularly happen other than the mayor's death at the end. Remember, Juliet's now going to be the one investigating whatever happened here with the mayor. I think it's pretty clear it's poison, but who, where, why? Was it her decision to make Juliet the sheriff that led to all this? I don't know, but I'm really looking forward to seeing her investigating these crimes and us seeing more aspects of the silo, especially how this top level works with admin, IT and the mayor, because I don't think the mayor's really the one in charge here. So I think next week we're going to probably get a closer look at the societal structure of the silo and see who the real players are. And while not as exciting as last week, I did really enjoy this episode, and I really want to see how this life in the silo works, because although not a fantastic episode, this show looks great and it is slowly building up. There was a lot of small, interesting aspects in this episode, but as always, these are just my thoughts and I want to hear yours, so let me know in the comments below. Especially your theories. I've got a lot of theories about why people went into the silo and what happened, but I'm not interested in what I think, I'm interested in what you think, and let me know. I'm going to be doing a separate video on my theories about the silo, so make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it already. And if you've made it this far, as always, I'm Al, thanks for watching. And remember, what happens in the silo stays in the silo.